welcome to Invest Korea. Today we'll be discussing business opportunities in South Korea post-COVID-19. And for that, we're joined by Mr. Sean Chang, head of Invest Korea, which is South Korea's investment promotion agency. Mr. Chang, welcome on board.
Hello, nice to meet you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Now, I'm sure many would agree that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought about numerous challenges for everyone.
Yes, COVID-19, or new terminology, coronomy, has changed not only where we're living, but also the very paradigm of international business. We're accelerating digital transformation, rapid conversion of an untaxed society, global value chain reshaping, and deglobalization.
And against such a backdrop, because it's such an unprecedented time, I'm sure many are very interested in what you have to say today, business opportunities in South Korea.
Since COVID-19, Korea has received much attention from the rest of the world. Among the factors, I would like to introduce kind of business opportunities available here in Korea. I hope that this discussion will help the investors watching this video to better understand about our market.
I certainly hope so too. So, Mr. Chang, let's dive straight into it. What kind of opportunities are there right now in Korea?
If you're interested in Korean market, I would suggest that you focus first and foremost on the digitalization process that is going on. Korea has become an example for countries worldwide in terms of responding transparently and rapidly to the spread of COVID-19. We also received attention because of ability to use smart city technology to analyze the movement route of confirmed cases. This is all based on a powerful IT infrastructure. Korea's IT infrastructure, as most of you may agree, is the best in the world. Our LTE and Wi-Fi download speeds are the #1 in the world, and we were the first one in the world to commercialize 5G. Recognized for such competitiveness, Korea has ranked #1 for 2 years in a row for ICT penetration. This is an important asset unique to Korea along the path to digitalization.
Now, another interesting aspect about South Korean IT sector's response to the COVID-19 pandemic has been the numerous powerful mobile applications that have come out. Do you think this is also related to that digital competitiveness of South Korea?
Yes, a lot of applications have been developed during the pandemic, such as self-diagnosis, tracking the movement route of confirmed cases, and mask inventory management applications, and many more. And some are even made by high school students. I was pretty surprised.
Wow.
This is also closely related to the digital market. Korea's e-commerce market is the 4th largest in the world, and in 2019, our O2O market grew more than 30% compared to the previous year. In addition, the Korean government recently announced the Korean New Deal policy along with its resolution to strengthen the digital industry.
So that combination there of the New Deal and the digitalization, that combination seems very attractive. Could you elaborate further for us?
Yes, of course. The aforementioned policy includes deployment of digital infrastructure, development of on-tech industries, and smartization of national infrastructure are some of the directions that the government is pursuing. These are the first national policies since COVID-19, and I believe shall be pursued with vigor.
So given the factors that you just outlined there, would you say that now is better time than ever for investors looking into South Korea to really take a deep research into it?
Of course.
Okay, so that's digitalization, but I think the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted other realms of the South Korean business opportunities that are very lucrative for investors.
The second keyword that I would like to introduce is biohealthcare. There has been a remarkable increase in exports for one item since COVID-19. It's diagnostic kits. Exports of diagnostic kits increased at least 8-fold in April compared to the previous month. In addition to diagnostic kits, exports of medicines and thermometers have also grown. The growth trend of Korean bioindustry is set to continue.
Then what about before COVID-19? Was Korea's biohealthcare industry growing? Was it on an uptick as well before?
Yes, indeed. Exports of Korean biomedicine had an annual average growth of 30% over the past 5 years. Exports of new drugs grew 4.5 times compared to that of 2016. Last year, investment in biohealthcare took up 26% of the entire, which is the most of the total investment in domestic venture capital. Korea is already registered on the EU whitelist and received exemption from submitting a GMP confirmation document upon exporting pharmaceutical ingredients. And we expect continuous growth of Korean biohealthcare industry going forward, based on the 5 biomedical clusters located throughout the country.
So based on the numbers that you just gave us there, it does seem very clear that Korea's biohealthcare industry is indeed very strong.
In light of competitiveness of Korea's bio industry, Bill Gates recently invested in Korean bio companies. Not only this, many global pharmaceutical companies such as Pfizer, Bayer, Novartis, and many more have advanced into Korea.
Now, you have already given us a great insight into business opportunities in South Korea. Is there more?
Yes, a third business opportunity in Korea that I would like to highlight is materials, parts, and equipments, pursuant to the restructuring of the global value chain. This is related to the key industries of Korea, such as semiconductors, displays, and electricity and electronics. Korea is leading the global market in memories, semiconductors, OLED displays, TV, and shipbuilding.
So companies like Samsung Electronics, LG Display, and SK Hynix come to mind.
Yes, they are the main players in Korea. And centered on these anchor companies, the supply chain for semiconductors has been built in Pyeongtaek and Yongin, and Paju and Tangjeong in the case of displays. These offer great business opportunities for global companies. Major companies like DuPont, Toray Advanced Materials, and Applied Materials have already recognized such opportunities and have advanced into Korea. Korea has integrated such advanced technologies to strengthen the ecosystem of core industries. We are growing as a global supply base for core materials, parts, and equipment industries.
Now, new investors to South Korea are probably curious about the business environment here. So could you give us an overview of that?
Yes, first of all, Korea is very innovative. The reason that Korea received so much attention worldwide during the pandemic was its capacity for innovation. Drive-through, walk-through, daily treatment centers were all developed as a part of efforts to cope with the crisis in a way that didn't exist before. Bloomberg has highly rated Korea's innovativeness and has ranked its #1 in Asia for 7 consecutive years.
Now, when I hear that word innovation, another word that comes to mind is Hallyu, or the Korean wave. Would you say that BTS, which is part of the Korean wave, can that also be considered an innovation?
Yes, that is very true. The Korean wave has shaped a phenomenon called K-industry, offering lines from cultural content to K-beauty. Total exports from this Korean wave has exceeded $12 billion, which is 22% higher growth rate compared to previous year.
So the Korean wave, it goes beyond being just a cultural phenomenon, and it also shows you that the Korean market is by no means small.
Yes, Koreans actually like consumptions, and I'm one of the big spenders as well. Among the global branches of Costco and IKEA, the Korean branches are #1 in terms of sales. Lamborghini, unlike most might have guessed, are sold the most in Korea. Consumers respond rapidly to new things. In other words, we are early adapters, which is why many companies choose Korea as a testbed. Examples include global companies such as Estée Lauder, Microsoft, BMW, and Starbucks. This is not all. Opportunities for overseas expansion with Korea as base have grown.
And I understand that South Korea has a very solid network of free trade agreements as well.
Korea's mega FTA network with 56 countries. This translates into 77% of the world's GDP. Korea can be base for expanding businesses overseas. Finally, I would like to speak to you about the stability of Korean economy.
The stability. Could you give us some examples?
Yes, recent example is an April election. Despite COVID-19, the voting rates recorded highest in the history. The elections were held safely, and in a well-organized manner, receiving praises from the world. The stability of Korea was also reflected in economic indicators. The IMF said that Korea is the most stable among the OECD countries in terms of economic growth rate for this year. Credit rating agencies such as Moody's and S&P assign high ranks to the strength of Korean economy and continue to maintain the current national credit rating.
All right, now before we wrap things up, Mr. Chang, could you give us an insight into the kind of assistance that Invest Korea provides for investors?
Yes, Invest Korea is a national investment promotion agency supporting foreign companies who wish to advance into Korea. From the pre-investment stage to post-investment management, we provide a one-stop service. Invest Korea webpage posts a great deal of information on Korea. Moreover, we provide support in many forms such as cash grant for investors, recruitment of qualified human resources for the foreign invested companies, and resolving investors' grievances by ombudsman.
Thank you for that detailed explanation. I hope today's talk will be of great help to those watching today's video.
Yes, I hope this talk has been informative and made it a bit easier on your decision to invest in Korea. If you're curious about anything, you can always visit our website or contact any of the 41 overseas investment branch officers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.